Othello is one of the most tragic of Shakespeare's plays and one of his most tragic characters that he created. And the reason for this is because Othello is a character that begins the play essentially having everything. At the beginning of the play, Othello is a very respected general. He is he's someone that's won a lot of wars. He's someone that has got political influence. He has achieved a high standing in his society. And all of this despite being black in a but despite being black in a place that is ruled by people that are white, and not that race has really any significance to me or any significance in reality, but in the context of the play, uh, the racism or the racial divide was a real thing in terms of seeing sort of dark skinned people as being like lesser than or being sort of below lighter skinned people. So the point is, Othello has been able to basically overcome all of this, and he's gotten to the point where he's general of the army. He's got political respect. He's got the respect of people around him, and he also, at the beginning of the play, has married the woman that he is in love with. And so basically, he's won at life pretty much. He's won everything. He's got respect, power, influence. He's overcome circumstances, based on his race, and he's hit the top of his society. Now, by the end of the play, Othello is essentially a man who has lost everything. Okay, he loses his wife, he loses his influence, he loses his reputation, and ultimately he actually loses his life as well. Okay. Um, so how does this happen, and what is the cause of this? That's what we're going to try and look at today. So we're going to try and figure out, how does Othello go from someone who's completely winning in life to someone who's completely lost everything? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna explain this to you not through the script and through the text, because one thing that I realized is a lot of the time when people teach plays or they explain plays, things like this, excuse me, they actually do it incorrect in terms of getting you to read a script. And this is like the equivalent of if someone said to you, "Have you seen this movie?" And then you said, "Yeah, I read the script yesterday." It'd be like strange, right? It'd be like weird. So when you read Shakespeare, or when you try and understand Shakespeare, try and get into it, you shouldn't actually read the play. You should watch it. Okay, if you can watch it in person, that's even better. But you should watch it, and you should watch like a film version of it or like a production of it, which someone's put on like YouTube or whatever. And this is actually how it's supposed to be consumed and how it was consumed, in the beginning when it first came out. Because you need to remember that most people at the time couldn't read. Like 80% of people at the time when Shakespeare was alive couldn't read. Okay, so anyway, that was like a side point. All right, so what is the basic story of the play? All right, so basically you have Othello. Okay, this is Othello here, and he is general of the army of Venice. And this is his best friend, I guess you could say. It was Iago. He was also a soldier or like a officer in Othello's army. And at the beginning of the play, Othello has decided to not promote Iago to the sort of second in command position, to a higher position. He's instead promoted someone else. Okay, and also at the beginning of the play, so this happens before the play kind of starts. So Othello has promoted someone else, and also he has married this woman who called Desdemona. Okay, and Desdemona is the daughter of one of the important political figures in the city called Brabantio. Okay, so two things happen before the play starts. One, Othello promotes someone else over Iago. He gives him a promotion, sort of to his second in command. And also, he's married this girl called Desdemona without her father knowing it. Okay, these are the two important things which happen at the beginning before the play starts. Okay, now this is relevant because um, Iago is going to be the main one who takes Othello down, basically. Okay, he's going to be the one who plots everything that leads to Othello being losing everything and killing himself at the end. Now, the person that he uses to help him do all this plotting is called Roderigo. Okay, Roderigo is this guy here, and he is madly in love with Desdemona, the woman that Othello has just married without her father knowing it. So Iago is basically going to use Roderigo to help him with his plots and to help him to take Othello down. Okay, this is what happens sort of before the play starts. All right, now when the play starts, Iago has come to the house of Brabantio. Again, this is the father of Desdemona. Okay, and he has started to shout um, and scream outside of his window, telling him that his daughter has essentially been kidnapped and magic spells have been used against her, and that right now, basically, she is being kidnapped by, he calls him the Moor, basically means Othello, and he uses like a lot of sort of racist terms to talk about him. He calls him a black bull and things like this. And basically, he's doing this to sort of get Brabantio to be angry, so then he can try to sort of lash out against Othello and make things bad for Othello. Okay, this is Brabantio here. All right. Anyway, so what happens next is at the same time when Iago has tried to create this sort of tension and bad situation for Othello by telling Desdemona's father, what's happened. Because Othello has married Desdemona without her father knowing. Okay, and I think this is one of the things that's going to help us to understand his character and understand how it is that he loses everything. Okay, so um, at the same time that this happens, uh, the Turkish army or fleet, navy has basically invaded Cyprus, and so now the Venetian state is basically, and they need to defend themselves. Okay, so Othello gets called to the Senate, and he gets told, just to make a long story short, he gets told, okay, look, we need you to go defend us, okay, against the invading Turkish army. The sort of underlying kind of thing that's going on at this point is that the Venetians plus Othello are Christian, and the Turks or Turkish people, they're Muslim. And they're not Turkish in terms of like what you think about Turkey today. It just refers to like the Ottoman Empire. That's what it means, the Turk. Okay, Turkish people is the Ottoman Empire because the Ottoman state was headed in Istanbul, which is in Turkey. Okay, but it doesn't mean literally like just Turkish people. It just means anyone in the empire, which was a lot of people, a lot of countries. Anyway, so Cyprus is being invaded, and so Othello is needed to defend the state. Okay, and at this point, Brabantio comes to the Senate, and he says to them, "Look, my daughter has been kidnapped. Othello's the one who did it. I want justice." And Othello basically is able to talk to them, and he's able to explain, "Look, I didn't kidnap her. I didn't do magic on her, but she fell in love with me because the stories that I told." He says, "She loved me for the adventures I had passed, and I loved her for the way she pitied them," something like that. That's the quote. Basically, he used to tell a lot of stories, and she fell in love with him for all the adventures that he'd been on, yeah, and sort of everything that he'd been through. And so she fell in love with him. Now, this kind of illustrates the first, I'd say, insight into why Othello loses everything. Yeah, how does he go from completely winning in life to losing everything? And I believe the one part of the answer is that Othello is a very emotional character. He's someone who puts his emotions over his rational mind, over his thinking. And so we can see this for the we can see this in terms of how he marries Desdemona after knowing that her father does not approve of it. Okay. And he basically marries Desdemona behind her father's back, knowing that her dad would not approve of it, but he does it anyway because he feels so much love for her. Now, today we might say, okay, that's what's the big deal about that, right? Who cares about it? But remember, in this society, it wasn't a sort of dating kind of society, or like you can just date who you want type of thing, or you can, this was a society where when you're married, or when you date someone, it's like you're gonna get married to them. Okay, it was like that kind of thing. Very traditional, and also Othello is not just like a random person. He is a highly important political individual, as is Desdemona's father and her family. They're like political people also. So it would be kind of similar to like it would be more similar to say like a princess in a royal family today, marrying someone without the king knowing. Even though Brabantio's not a king, he's like a political figure, a senator. But it's like that level. You know what I'm saying? It's like that level. So anyway, it's like a big shock. So he does this even though he knows that Brabantio wouldn't approve of it because Brabantio wants his daughter to marry a white person. But he does it anyway. Um, and this kind of tells you, like I said, that he doesn't really think. He doesn't really go with what he knows the wise or the rational thing to do is. Like he knows that this union, this marriage, is not gonna work out realistically. It's not gonna work out. And he knows that even though she's in love with him, he's in love with her. He should have just moved on to someone else, right? And it's funny because when he's giving this speech about how he was able to, and then she shows up eventually and says, "Yes, all true. I fell in love with him, etc., etc." When he's giving this speech, excuse me, one of the other senators listening says, "Yeah, he didn't do any witchcraft. My own daughter would have fell in love this way, and I don't have anything against it." So like, so Othello could have basically married someone else. It's not like everyone was completely 100% racist. He could have just went with someone where it would have worked out. Now, again, you could say, okay, but it's not right that race should have played a role, and I agree with you, obviously. I'm just making the point that he was led by his emotions rather than his critical thinking. Okay, he did something which he knew was gonna have a lot of issues, a lot of problems because of his emotions, how much he loved her, rather than his critical thinking, okay, what's the intelligent thing to do? And I believe this is going to be key to how Iago is able to manipulate him and is able to trick him because all he has to do is trigger his emotions, specifically the emotion of insecurity, of jealousy and anger, and this is enough to make him kill his wife. Okay, the intense love, which which blinded him in terms of the rational way to behave, what's the right thing to do in terms of logically, what's the logical thing to do, and he was blinded by his emotions. So too will he be blinded by his emotions when it comes to, excuse me, what's the logical thing to do or logical truth when it comes to his wife being faithful to him, and how Iago is able to trick him into thinking that she's not faithful to him. Now, just one thing about the content that I'm using, the film that I'm using. So this actor is obviously not actually black. Okay, this actor is white. This is Laurence Olivier. He's a very famous theater or stage actor. He's considered to be one of the greatest stage actors of all time. Many people consider him um, with that regard. And he's in blackface. Okay, and the reason that I chose to use this as opposed to using an actual a film where there's an actual black person playing Othello is because this is actually how the play was held or produced, done in England and in many places up until like the 1900s. Excuse me. Up until like the 1900s, they used blackface. Now, on the one hand, obviously this was just for practical reasons because there wasn't really any black people in England in the 1500s. In the 1500s when the play was made, or the 1600s when the play was made, and so obviously they just had to use an actor and make them look black, or in terms of their color. But there's actually another reason why I chose to go with this as opposed to like an actual black person, and that is because it illustrates even further the idea that the racial divide or the way that black people were seen was sort of so low that it wouldn't even make sense to put them on stage. Does that make sense? So in other words, black people were seen as being so low, so sort of below white people or um, whichever the dominant kind of nation was. In this case, we'll just say white people. They were seen as sort of so below them that to put a black person on stage to play a black role, it didn't actually make sense to the producers of the film or whatever. Now, I'm not saying that was the reason behind this film. I'm not saying that they were racially biased or whatever. They're probably following tradition. I don't know. But my point is that looking at it this way, you can see how much sort of um, how much of a struggle it would have been for Othello, the character, to overcome everything that he overcame to become a general. You see what I'm saying? That's the point. The point is, if a black actor couldn't even get on stage to perform the role of the character, imagine how difficult it would have been for the character to become a general of the army and politically respected and everything else. You see? And this is the reason that the reason or the thing that this tells us is basically it shows how tragic it is that Othello loses everything because of how difficult it would have been for him to get everything in the first place. How much he would have had to struggle, how much sacrifice, how much pain and everything that he would have had to have gone through. That's why it's so tragic that he loses everything in the end after having gone through all of this. You see, that's why it makes it so sad and a true tragedy. Excuse me. And it makes you think that, it makes you think maybe this shows that even with Shakespeare himself, that maybe Shakespeare in a way was kind of more racially open-minded and more kind of forward-thinking than maybe many people at his time, in that he chose to make a black person the central character of his story, and the story is a tragedy. It's not a horror. It's a tragedy, not a horror. And what's the difference between that? The difference is you're supposed to feel sorry for Othello, right? You're supposed to feel sorry that he loses everything. It's supposed to make you cry that he loses everything. You're not supposed to be scared of Othello. You see? And so basically it forces the viewer, the person watching the play, to see Othello like a human being, and not just that, to see him like a someone that deserves love and praise and admiration, and then to feel sorry at the end that he loses everything. You're like forced to be on his side, to root for him, and then you feel kind of bad that you feel very bad that he like lost it all. You see, so it's almost like an anti-racist play. Hmm? So, um, and also interestingly, in the play itself, it mentions the word Palestine, which is in the 1600s. Anyway, that's like a side point. All right, so anyway, back to the story. So what happens is Othello goes and does what he's supposed to do as a general. He saves the island of Cyprus from the invasion. And also on that point, Othello, the black man, is made to be Christian and made to be like one of the member of the state. which is also again sort of an anti-racist point. Anyway, so Othello does what he's supposed to do. He's successful at his role. Okay, he successfully pushes away and also the if you see the villain in the story is a white person. Again, anyway, these points are just to show Shakespeare is like sort of, in my opinion, very forward thinking and very not racist. Yeah, that's like what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so he does his job properly, and then the other people come to Cyprus. Okay, so everyone now is in Cyprus. All right. So Othello makes the island safe, basically, and then everyone else, like Iago and so on, they all come to Cyprus to like celebrate and to do whatever else. All right. So what happens next is Iago, this is Rodrigo. Remember, this is the guy who's in love with Desdemona. This is the guy who hates Othello because Othello passed him up for promotion. Okay. Now Iago basically comes up with the plan that uh, he has to he has to now uh, he has to now basically make Othello hate the guy who he promoted. Okay, and this person is called Cassio. This is Cassio right here. Iago Cassio. Okay, so he realizes now that he needs to make Othello hate the person that he promoted. Okay, and he's gonna do this by basically making Othello believe that Cassio is having an affair with Desdemona, Othello's love, his wife. Okay, and one thing that we can say in terms of related to the earlier point that I made about Othello, his one of his key mistakes being, or his key character flaws being his emotions overtake his intellect. His emotions overtake his logic. He thinks with his heart, you can say, or he doesn't really think too much. He just acts based on his feelings, his emotions. The character of Iago is the exact opposite to this. Okay. Iago is a character who does not, he is not controlled by any of his emotions. Maybe besides hate. You could say hate, maybe his hatred is maybe his fundamental character. Yeah, the bottom of his character, but he isn't pushed by his emotions. Okay? He isn't pushed by his emotions in the same way that Othello is. Meaning meaning nothing can make him act or do anything without him first calculating all the different uh ways of doing it. Okay. He is hyper intellectual. Okay. Iago is hyper intellectual. And um some people have said things like Lucifer, in other words, the devil. When Lucifer was before he fell or after he fell, like from the Christian perspective, one of the um one of the key defining qualities of the devil is hyper rationality or hyper intellect. In other words, being hyper calculating without being like human at the same time. Calculating to the maximum for self-interest. And this is also what you can call Machiavellianism. In other words, if you read like the philosopher Machiavelli in his book The Prince, which is like a political book that he wrote on how to gain power and how to maintain power. It's like a dark kind of book. He wrote it for his local ruler or one of the rulers. I forget the exact story, but anyway, he wrote it for him in terms of like, here's how you manipulate people, here's how you sort of maintain political power. And the book itself is uh, it's basically what you could call amoral or immoral. In other words, he doesn't say anything about how to be a good person, how to be an ethical person. He strictly focuses on how to gain the most amount of power by any means necessary, which is why it's called Machiavellianism. And Iago is like that. Okay, Iago is Machiavellian. Machiavellian. He is like that. Do whatever is necessary to advance your goals and your ambitions. Okay. So he is completely hyper rational without any regard for other people or anything else. All right. And so he is like the opposite of Othello in that way. Othello is completely emotional without thinking. Iago is completely thinking without any human emotion. Okay. To the point where he uses Othello, or he uses Cassio, he uses Roderigo, he uses his wife Amelia uh, to help him with his plot. Like she steals a handkerchief, which is going to be important later on, an important symbol. He uses his wife. He uses everyone to advance his goals. Okay, without thinking about them as human beings. He's like a psychopath. Yes, I think I'm not sure if it'd be psychopath or sociopath. I think it might be psychopath, huh? The one that doesn't feel any empathy for people. I think he's a psychopath. He's a psychopath, basically. Yeah, psychopath. He uses people, manipulates people. Uses. He's like a parasite psychopath. Okay, so um, on the one hand, there's something which is sort of admirable about that, or good, or something that we like about that. Something that we like about that, which is why we see it in different characters throughout history and throughout different mythologies, like the character Loki, like the one in the Marvel series, originally from Norse mythology. The character Loki is essentially the same too, especially in the earlier kind of films, where he doesn't have any compassion, he doesn't have any empathy. He's just purely calculating and psychopathic in that way. Hyper intelligent, do whatever it takes to get what you want, trick people, etc. And there's something that we like about that because it shows that you're intelligent, you're smart, and you're good at planning things, and you're good at achieving what you want, which is kind of like something that we would like to have. But the flip side of that is obviously these people they take the like Iago, he takes this good thing and he takes it to the extreme. Excuse me, he takes it to the furthest extreme, and he doesn't have the correct balance for it, which is the human empathy or care for others. Othello is like the opposite. He has the good thing, which is being human, being empathetic, connecting to people, having love for people, being alive. Yeah, even hate to some extent is like, anger, jealousy, these kind of things. These are all human emotions which are understandable, which is why he's the hero and Iago is the villain. Excuse me, not the other way around. Because Othello, we can understand, we can see ourselves in that position. He's understandable, which is why he's a flawed hero. He's a tragic hero. He has the human side to him, the humanity in him, but he takes it too far. He lets his emotions go too far. He takes them to the extreme. So both Iago and Othello are extremes, are both like extreme ends of a human being, basically. The ideal would be if Othello had Iago's thinking, with his humanness, his good human heart, or if Iago had Othello's good human heart with his thinking. You see, if the two of them were combined, then you would have the ideal, what you should be. You should be logical and able to think, rationalize and plan, but you should also be human, care about people and not use people as tools or objects. You should basically have empathy and have a heart which loves people and experiences human emotion. You should have both. This would be the ideal. Now, obviously, Shakespeare didn't do that because this is supposed to be a tragedy. It's supposed to be a sad story. If this was a comedy, in other words, if it was supposed to have a happy kind of end to it, then the main character, would be like that. Okay. Now, what happens next is uh, Iago basically begins his plan against Cassio, and one of Cassio's flaws is he's not able to drink very well. If he drinks, he gets kind of violent and he gets drunk very fast. So Iago basically holds a sort of celebration in which he gets Cassio drunk, and then he makes Roderigo start a fight with him, and then basically Cassio stabs someone. Okay, he stabs like another soldier. I'm not exactly sure who this is, but he stabs someone. Okay, because he's drunk, and because of this, Othello, this is Othello again. Othello strips him of his promotion, and he basically puts him like on like a like a timeout, like a punishment kind of thing. In other words, he loses his promotion. At this point, he loses his promotion, and maybe it's understood that he might get it back eventually. Although that's not said, it's just that his promotion is taken away from him. Okay, so Iago basically gets him to, and the thing with Iago, the way his tricks work and the way his actions and manipulations work, he doesn't force anyone to do anything. I guess this is also why he's kind of like the devil in a way. Uh, so if you think about the devil from different religious perspectives, the devil is an entity which it doesn't force you to do anything, but it just sort of gives you a nudge and helps you to, or gives you the opportunity. This might be a better way to think about it. Gives you the opportunity to kind of to bring out your negative side. That's like how the devil's seen. The devil is seen as a whispering kind of force. So Iago here, acting sort of satanically, gives Cassio the opportunity to do what he knows he shouldn't do, which is to drink. Okay, he knows he shouldn't drink. He also has the authority, since he is above Iago in rank, to say no, I'm not going to drink. Even to end the party, he could be the one to say no one's going to drink because I'm in charge here. But he doesn't do that. Doesn't do that. Instead, he drinks and then he acts out like how he does when he drinks, and therefore he has his own fall. You see, same thing that happens with Othello. Okay, um, when Iago gets to whispering to Othello, he doesn't force Othello to do anything because he can't force him to do anything. All he does is nudge him in the direction and sort of open up the door for him to let his bad side out. You see? Um, so this is how Iago works. Basically, he encourages and he presents and provides situations to let the person sort of destroy themselves. Okay. Now, what he does with Cassio, the way he uses him, is after he gets his rank stripped, now the next thing he does is he tells Cassio, okay, you need to now approach um, approach Othello's wife, Desdemona, who's a very nice woman, and you need to basically beg to her to talk to her husband, Othello, and tell him, please give you your rank back, your promotion back. Like you messed up, you got drunk, so please talk on your behalf so that you can get your promotion back. And Desdemona, being like a nice woman, she obviously agrees to it. Okay, and this is how he's now gonna get Othello to think that Cassio and Desdemona are having an affair. This is how that she's cheating on him. So what he does is he basically tells Othello, okay, like, did you see how they were talking to each other? And in this scene here, he basically tells Othello, he doesn't say anything explicitly, he just hints at things. He hints at things. And this kind of plants the seed in like Othello's mind, which makes him, again, remember we said he is emotion first. It makes his emotions start to kind of bubble up and take control of him, and he demands Iago to tell him more about what he's saying, to be clear with him, and to, in a way, it's kind of crazy because he says to Iago, to basically tell me that my wife is cheating on me, basically. And he says this and sort of tell me what, and he's not able to, again, kind of being emotion first and not logical. He isn't able to see Iago's true nature in that he calls him again and again, Honest Iago, Honest Iago. This is like his title that he gives to him, Honest Iago. And I guess this is understandable on the one hand because he's been through so many wars with him, he's been through so many battles with him. They've probably saved each other's lives at this point. They've helped each other, etc. And so he doesn't, it's like your best friend. Imagine like your best friend who you've been there with. Imagine you've been in shootouts and you've been in different situations with them. They've saved your life, you've saved their life, you've stayed over at their house, they know your family, you know their family. The last thing you're gonna think is this guy's a snake, right? You're gonna think this is my brother. That's how Othello sees Iago, like that. Again, this is why it makes the story so tragic, because he is destroyed by his brother. Hmm? So what happens is Iago basically tells Othello, look, he hints to him, did you see how she's looking at him? Or did you see how she talks? Did you see how he talks to her? They're very close, aren't they? Like things like this. And Othello isn't able to see what he's doing. He ignores it. He's not able to pick up on it. Okay? And eventually what happens is Othello gets so kind of triggered by it that he then sort of tells Iago, okay, now I need you to give me proof. And he starts to question himself. Why did I get married? He's saying like here, why did I get married? He's talking to himself right here. Why did I get married for her to her? You know, did I mess up? Etc. And now when she comes to talk to him, he says like I got a headache. And he now basically has started to lose trust in her. Yeah, he started to lose trust in her and he started to question her. Okay, I'll talk about handkerchief in a second. He started to question her and he started to lose trust in her. Okay. Yeah. All right. So what happens basically is Desdemona drops her. She drops her handkerchief, basically like we don't really use these days, but it's like a napkin, kind of like a scarf. Maybe you can think about that. It's better to think of like a little scarf kind of thing. And it's like what in the old days people maybe would give this to each other as a token of love. They would have it like sort of you know embroidered in such a way with a certain different symbols or something like that. And you would give it to a woman or she'd give it to you as a token of like I love you kind of thing. Like maybe we could think about it like today as our wedding ring, something like that, yeah, like that. Excuse me. So he gave this to Desdemona. She dropped it by accident. Iago's wife found it, and she is madly in love with Iago. She's madly in love with Iago, and so she says at this point, Iago's been asking me to steal this from Desdemona because she's Desdemona's like maid, like her helper kind of thing. And so she said he's always been asking me to steal this from her. Now I've got one. Now I've found it. Now he's gonna be happy with me. Now he'll love me for real. Okay. So she's obviously being manipulated also by Iago. All she wants is his love, and he uses her also. Okay. And he doesn't really care about her. He uses her. Okay. Now basically what happens is now basically what happens is uh at this point Othello is getting really angry. His jealousy and his trust issues, his insecurity is boiling over like a volcano. And he now sort of flips out on Iago and he says, you need to give me proof for what you're saying. Okay, I demand you give me proof because like what you're telling me is too hard for me to sort of bear. It's too hard for me to take in. And if you think about it, it's actually kind of crazy because it's actually kind of crazy that he actually faints here. Huh? Because Iago's able to flip it on him and he's able to say, okay, I'm never going to tell you anything again because look at you're pulling a knife out on me. I'm never going to be honest again. Being honest gets you punished. He basically gaslights him and he's like, look, I tried to do a good thing, but you punish me for it. You know what? I'm never going to do a good thing to you again. And this basically makes Othello, his words are so strong that he has like a breakdown. He has like a panic attack, like a breakdown kind of thing. Um, yeah, he has like a breakdown kind of panic attack kind of thing. And you can see like we're only like halfway through the film or through the play, I should say. Um, and already he has gone from completely in love with Desdemona to the point of doing what he's not supposed to do, okay, which is like marrying her without her father knowing about it. Yeah, he could have risked he was risking his job and everything else by doing that, his position and stuff. So he went from completely in love with her, she's the only one for me, and so on and so on, madly in love with her, to now completely questioning her and demanding proof that she is cheating on him. And he's not demanding proof in terms of like he doesn't believe it. He's demanding proof because he wants to confirm it so that he can actually kill her. You see, and kill Cassio also. So he's already flipped from like the beginning of the play just happened, not so long ago, to now just a little bit later. He's already completely flipped, and he's already completely gone from intense love to now intense anger and hate. Mm? And why is this? Why is this? So obviously, on the one hand, you have what we talked about before. You can see now, even when he's holding her hand and stuff, he's not being so romantic towards her. He's already sort of questioning her, saying to her, um, what he's doing at this point is he's saying, "Where's the handkerchief? Where's the handkerchief? The napkin?" And obviously, she's lost it. Yeah. So she lies to him and says, "I don't have it right now, but I can go get it for you." Okay, 'cause she's scared that if he finds out that she doesn't have it, he's gonna basically think she gave it to someone, etc. And so now with this little thing of her not having this napkin, this handkerchief, like a wedding ring, you can imagine that, right? Not having her wedding ring. Now he basically is confirmed and fully believes that, or 90%, 80% believes that now she's having an affair and she's cheating on him. It's only going to take one more thing. Um, it's only going to take Iago doing one more thing for him to basically confirm the way he feels and to completely. Here he's having a panic attack. You can see for him to completely. Yes, here he actually faints. He actually faints completely because he now fully 80%, 90% believes it. Okay. Now the only other thing that's gonna happen in this regard is Iago's gonna make him overhear uh what's his name? Cassio and his girlfriend, if you want to call it that. Bianca. Bianca is like a working woman. If you know what I'm saying. She's like a lady, she's from the streets, so she belongs to the streets, if you know what I'm saying. And she's in love with Cassio. He's not in love with her, but he's got some kind of situationship kind of thing going on with her. He doesn't take her seriously or anything. In any case, Iago makes Othello overhear Bianca and Cassio talking, and or sorry, him talking about Bianca to Iago, saying like, "This girl, she's in love with me. She wants me to be at her house every day. I don't even care about her." And then uh, he also makes Othello watch as he's hiding. Yeah, so Cassio doesn't know he's there in both these scenes. He's hiding. So he makes, yeah, Othello watch as he gives the napkin or the handkerchief, as he gives the handkerchief to Bianca and tells her, take the stitching out of this. I found it in my house. Take the stitching out of it and do something with it. Now he found it in his house because Iago planted it there. Okay, so when his wife stole it, he went to Cassio's house, planted the handkerchief there. Cassio found it, and now he's given it to, like I said, a working woman, if you know what I mean. And Othello has watched all of this, and basically he now thinks fully that Desdemona's cheating on him, and the guy she's cheating with doesn't even care about her. He's like he's like playing around with different women and stuff like that. Which is now why he's sort of on the floor, he's having a seizure. He can't take it. He's had a full blown meltdown. Okay. Now the question comes, why does this happen? Why does this happen? And this is Othello watching as Cassio tells Iago about Bianca. He thinks that he's talking about his wife, Desdemona. Okay, now why does this happen? Why does this happen? How is he able to trick him so badly? that he's able to fully, he's able to sort of fully uh, crash out and eventually kill his wife. How does that happen? What is the cause of it? So I would say beyond, yeah, it's fine. Okay, I'd say beyond his lack of, or his beyond his extreme emotion and putting emotion over logic and putting his feelings and not controlling his feelings, not controlling his emotions over his logic. I'd say the other major thing that causes this major crash out where he kills his wife, um, and eventually kills himself, or puts a hit out on Cassio too, like says he wants him dead, and also kills himself as well, is his insecurity. I think this is his other major flaw. Okay, so if you want to know what are the flaws of Othello that lead to his self-destruction, I'd say there are two. One is his extreme emotion, and this would tie to his the line that he says at the end, something along the lines of, "When you tell the story and you talk about me, say that I was someone that loved well. I loved too well, but not wisely." Something like that's the quote. He says it at the end before he kills himself. So there's one extreme emotion without logic. But I'd say on the other side, the other thing that leads to his self-destruction is his insecurity. Okay, his insecurity. And this is him right before he's gonna kill his wife. So Othello, Othello is extremely insecure. Othello is extremely insecure. And what this means basically is that he does not trust people. Except, funnily enough, the one person that he shouldn't trust. He's like a bad judge of character. He doesn't trust people. Except he trusts Iago, who he shouldn't trust. But he's extremely insecure, and I believe this is the reason why he's able to get tricked so easily. Now, if you think about Othello's background, he is a soldier. Mm? All of his life has been spent in the military, has been spent in conflict, fighting people, killing people, people trying to kill him, etc. Watching his friends die, etc. Now, this kind of life is one which lacks safety, lacks security. By virtue of the fact that you are always in danger of someone trying to kill you, being that you're on the front lines, you're a soldier, someone's trying to kill you, someone's killing your friends, and so on. It means fundamentally the thing that you experience the most is insecurity, physical insecurity. You're always on edge of someone is going to be trying to kill you. You're always alert and trying to look for danger. This is Othello's core psychology. Yeah? He's been traumatized and he has PTSD, and now he is hypersensitive to even any small signal of danger. Now, as a soldier, the trained response to danger and his from his lived experience also, okay, in terms of how he is supposed to respond to danger, to a threat, is he is supposed to kill the threat. Because for him, throughout his entire life, anytime there's been a threat to him, a danger, something which causes his insecurity, causes him to be insecure, and therefore causes his emotions, his self-preservation emotions to trigger, his fear, his anger, and all that to trigger, the correct response has been to kill. That's been the right response because on the battlefield, obviously, you need to kill the other person before they kill you. Yes? So if you take these two things together, you can see it makes complete sense why he kills his wife. Iago basically convinces Othello, he doesn't even convince him, but he triggers his insecurity in such a way that Othello begins to view his wife as a threat to him. He begins to view his wife as a danger to him. And as soon as this threat and danger becomes fully manifested in his mind, in other words, he fully believes that she is in fact a danger to him, a threat to him, then the only correct response is to kill her. You see, the only correct response in his mind, in his reflexes, in his who he is to kill her, to stop the danger and therefore to become secure again. So Othello's problem is his insecurity. Basically, that's his main problem. Besides his extreme emotion, it's his insecurity. If he was more secure as a person in himself, in his, if he was able to, and obviously this is 500 years ago, so they didn't have therapy and stuff, but if he was able to work through his insecurities, yes, and get past his hyper sensitivity to danger, and he was able to move past that, okay, if he was able to contextualize that true danger is from enemy soldiers, yes, and to realize, oh, I'm seeing danger in normal people when they're not dangerous, it's just an enemy soldier that's dangerous. If he was able to work through this kind of stuff, then he would not have reacted in the same way that he did. When Iago came to him with this hint that his wife's cheating on him, he would have told Iago to stop. Yes, and also maybe he would have punished him for bringing up such accusations. The internal, the internal work, manipulation would not have happened because he would not have had the same level of insecurity and sensitivity to danger. You see, he would have reacted in a different way. You see, but since he did not do that, and since his insecurity was still hyper present, therefore, when the trickery and manipulation began, it worked on him perfectly. So this led to him basically killing his wife, which he does with his hands. He uses a pillow first and then he chokes her. And then after killing his wife, he finds out the truth. Okay, he finds out the truth that his wife was faithful to him and he basically killed her for no reason. And then he was tricked. And then he kills himself. Okay, eventually he kills himself. It is right here. Yeah, right here. So eventually he kills himself because now he, again, same thing, insecurity triggers, his reflexes trigger. And now who is the danger? It's not his wife anymore, it's himself. He's realized he himself, and that's him there lying next to his wife, he himself has become a danger. He himself has become a danger and a threat um, to himself, basically, and to everyone. And so now he kills himself. Before he does that, he stabs Iago. He doesn't kill him, but he stabs him. And then Iago is taken basically to be tortured and things like that. We don't really know what happens to him, but he's just taken away. They say torture him and things like that, so we can assume he's put in prison. Cassio, an attempt is made on Cassio's life by Rodrigo and Iago. Rodrigo gets killed in the process, and Iago doesn't get found out. He basically stabs Cassio from behind, although he's still alive. And then Rodrigo gets killed. Okay, Iago actually kills him to hide the plotting that they've been doing. Okay, so yeah, Rodrigo dies, Desdemona dies, Othello dies, Iago's still alive, but he's in prison. He's going to be tortured. Cassio gets promoted to like the a very high position in the city. Okay, so it's a true tragedy because you can see now at the end of the play, Othello loses everything, including his own life, and he loses it all for nothing. He loses it all for nothing. There's a line by Dostoevsky: "You have lost everything for no reason," something like that. It's a line. You have destroyed yourself. That's it. You have destroyed yourself for no reason. Something like that. The worst sin of all is you have destroyed yourself for no reason. I seen that quote the other day, which is quite apt. So essentially, to answer the question, how does Othello lose everything? How does he go from someone who has overcame an insane amount of obstacles and difficulties to someone that loses everything and dies and loses his love of his life at the end? The answer is extreme emotion and hyper insecurity. That's the answer. Extreme emotion and hyper insecurity. So there's my analysis of the play. I should say I've made a modern English translation of the play. I'll put the link in the description. Basically, it's the whole play, but in like modern English. I'd recommend if you're gonna sort of try and understand the play, you don't read it, but you watch it, just like we've done today. And yeah, that's it. Yeah. So in any case, I think these kind of plays, what they more so show us, um, because obviously we won't really be in these situations of extreme kind of political nature. They more so show us that I guess if we have sort of issues, number one thing is to try and identify them, because obviously issues are difficult to work through. But if you can identify them and you can know what your own problems are, then at the very least you can like put a limit to how much you self-destruct. Like even if Othello, because he's a general and stuff, he's still active. Even if he wasn't able to fully heal his insecurity and so on, if he was able to realize like it's a major problem that he has, if he was able to say, "Man, I've got real insecurity issues, and when I get insecure, my anger strikes, and then I want to hurt someone." If he was able to realize that, and he was able to realize, look, I don't really think too well, um, I let my emotions get the best of me. He was able to identify these two. Then at the very least, he could have realized when he was getting triggered by Iago's words about his wife. He could have said, I'm being insecure here," and then he could have like divorced her rather than kill her. So he could have divorced her as opposed to killing her. Yes, he could have taken a lesser of a extreme option. It would have still been bad. He would have lost her. She would have been heartbroken and all that, but she would have been alive. He would have been alive. Um, like that, yeah. So we can do the same thing. Basically, we can identify what's the thing that could destroy me. Think about it. What are one of my what is my weaknesses? What are my flaws? Where am I? What? How could I destroy myself? Yeah. How could what if in the right circumstances? What would those be that I would completely destroy myself? For some of us, alcohol. For some of us, it's drugs. For some of us, it's gambling. For some of us, it's partying. For some of us, it's certain types of relationships and so on. Yeah, anger issues, whatever, whatever. You can think about. You know yourself. Like the Socrates said, written on the temple of Delphi, the wisest saying of all is to know thyself. Know thyself. So know yourself, and if you can figure out what is it that could destroy you, then it means you can put limits on it, so you don't fully self-destruct. Is that you can self-destruct a little bit, because maybe that's just your human natural inclination, which is hard to stop. So you can self-destruct it, but you could put a limit on it. You get me? You know that you're very prone to being an alcoholic, and you know that if you go to certain places or you hang around with certain people, you're going to become a full-blown alcoholic. But at the same time, you've got, uh, I don't know, you put a limit on it, so you're never in those places like this, huh? You never meet those kind of people. And then maybe you mess up and you like drink one time at home or something like that. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Basically, you put a limit on it, so you never fully self-destruct. That's the point. Okay, you don't go full crash out. You don't fully crash out, and that way you can still save yourself. Yeah. Ideally, you don't crash out at all, but we're human. Yeah, that's the point. We're all gonna crash out at some point. We're human. But the point is, if you can put a limit on it, that's like how you stay not fully. You don't go full crash out mode, huh? You still can save yourself, basically. All right. Anyway, hope everyone's doing good, and that's my analysis of the play.